came to camp to visit me, and in California at camp it's pretty nice, right? It was pretty nice?
Well, from where I was standing.
Yeah. And
outside the gate, looking at the nice pretty lawn. And
yeah, we had, you know, nice lunch and everything. But when the bell goes off that says, time to go home, families, and Brendan was able to witness the effects on the children when visiting time is over, and them not really getting and understanding how incarceration affects multi-generations, you know, the children of the people who are in prison. Brendan said, you know, we have to do something about this. So that's when the idea for the school came about. And we worked, and then we bought a school in California, Larson Training Centers, that's been in business since 1989. And the objective of Larson was of Dale Larson, the founder, was he wanted everybody to be able to, all kids to be able to have tennis shoes, that their parents had an education that they could get stable, meaningful employment. And so we picked up the ball and went after and focused on the people who really need help the most, which are ex-felons, felons, people in prison, out of prison, people who are living in Salvation Army, Catholic Industries, etc. And so this campus here is really devoted and dedicated to that, veterans. It's dedicated to that, and it's because our campus in California supports us, and we have the support of Salvation Army, and also the support of the Nevada Department of Corrections, that we're able to do this. And so yesterday we had a great meeting with the Department of Corrections, and you know, a very important person came down, and he's here today, and he's going to come up in a second and talk about some things. We had the opportunity to go talk about education with the Department of Corrections, and the importance of BrainRush also as part of that. And so Nolan's going to be here is here to talk about that, and what we did, what the future is. And last time Nolan was here, he talked about marshmallows. Do you remember that? Take one marshmallow, or hold off and take the second marshmallow. And today, I don't know. Well, we'll find out in a second what Nolan's going to talk about. But so I hardly wait to find out. Exactly. So anyway, this is one of those times in your life. I'll guarantee you, this is one of those times in your life that you're going to look back and remember this day. So I encourage you, as compelling and persuasive as Nolan is, to take notes to remember what he said. Because when it comes time to the quiz on Friday, and I talk about what did Nolan talk about, you're going to remember, you're going to say, oh, God, I know it was great, and it changed my life. I just can't remember exactly what he said. So take notes, review them, and Nolan, would you come on up, please? So let's give a round of applause for Nolan being here, coming all the way from California. And so, Nolan, we have our campus in California. Let's see, Dennis, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
No, why don't you say hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Brought to us by the magic of technology.
There you go.
First of all, I got to tell you a couple of stories on Ed. I worked with Ed and I worked together for better part of 6 years in a really strange project, and the thing about Ed, no matter when he came in, no matter how crappy you felt, he could actually bring some sunshine into the room, and he always had there were a few really crazy deals he brought into me, and I said, if you believe it, it'll work. And believe it or not, some of his crazy ideas really, really turned out to be great. And so I owe a lot to Ed, and so I'm doing a little payback here. Anyway, you guys are really lucky because you are at a point in life where everything is being reset. I bet if you think in the back of your brain, you say, man, I'm way behind the curve. There's It's all kinds of young kids who graduated from college, all, you know, 10 years ago, 10 years younger than me, 20 years younger than me. Well, it turns out that an awful lot of the jobs that they have trained for are going away. And that the new jobs are what you're learning to do. And so in some ways, you're as far ahead as a lot of the people who were on the straight path to where they are today. And so that should be good for you, because the trick in life is timing. But more than that, if you believe in getting something for nothing, if you get a lottery ticket hoping to get the mega bucks prizes, did you know that most of the people who win the lottery 5 years later have a ruined life? Do you really want that? Also, when you play a slot machine, the hold is about 95%, or the hold is about 5%. The hold in a lottery is 50%. That is really bad odds. But the return on hard work is sometimes 200, sometimes 400%, sometimes 1,000%. So if you want hard work, grit, persistence, because sometimes the straight path is a bitch. It's really, really hard. But you have to be able to stay the course. And last time I told about 4-year-olds. This is a study that was done at Columbia University in New York about 35 years ago. And they took 4-year-olds and they put them in a room. They put a marshmallow on the desk and said, I'm going to leave, and if the marshmallow is still there when I come back, I'm going to give you 2 marshmallows. Some of the kids, the minute the person left the room, ate the marshmallow. The kids that were able to defer immediate gratification for the 2 marshmallow reward were more successful in life. They tracked these kids for the following 20 years and found out that it was the best predictor of success in life. Deferred gratification, impulse control, really made a difference. So, the lesson really is that always have a dream, put it out there, and go for it. And you can accomplish anything you want if you're willing to work hard enough. Steve Jobs worked for me. I gave him his first job. He was 19 years old. And he was one of the only employees that I had that I would find asleep under his desk after working most of the night. He was an extremely hard worker. He was extremely hard worker. Now, a lot of people say, well, there's his ideas and his direction for Apple and that sort of thing. But I believe that his hard work was the real definitive thing. And, believe it or not, Steve wasn't the smartest guy in the room. His partner, Wozniak, was. He was a true savant. But Steve had the vision, had the tenacity, had the drive to make Apple Computer, in a very short time, the most valuable company in the world. The most valuable company in the world from a start, in 1977. Now,
Nolan, what stage was Atari at when you started?
Atari was about 300 employees when Steve started. He started as a tech. He wasn't a full engineer. And my first interaction with him was he came in to my office. I had an open door policy. And he came in and he says, "Nobody knows how to solder." I said, "But we've been building machines that use soldering for a long time." He says, "Yeah, but they really are doing it wrong." And when you solder, if you do a bad solder joint, it can kind of hold the wire in place, but it deteriorates over time. It's called a cold solder joint. He brought in a couple of circuit boards. He says, "Look at them. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad. That." And I said, "Well, what do you think we should do?" He says, "Well, fix it." And I said, "Steve, you're now deputized to teach everyone how to solder the right way." He says, "Good. I'll do that." And he did it. You know, and he was basically tech, so it wasn't just production line, but he was pretty low on the totem pole. And he came in and he made a difference, because after he taught everybody how to solder, our service calls and our failures dropped. And I thought, that's the kind of guy you want to have working for you. He was a little obsessive compulsive disorder, but that's okay. You know, you want people that are a little crazy. Anyway, the other thing that I want to talk to you about a little bit is entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship really? A lot of people think that they need to go out and they need to get venture capital and they need to start this, you know, the next, you know, Facebook or MySpace or what have you. No, it's not. Entrepreneurship is about making your own job. Now, you guys are cons. You've got a record. When you go in to ask for a job, you've got this great big mark on your head. And you say, "Please, sir, give me a job." What you're doing is you're placing your soul, you're placing yourself at the feet of somebody who is going to give you something. You're a supplicant. When you say, "I'm going to make my job," you're taking power for yourself, because nobody can stop you from building your own job. Now, you say, "I don't have, what am I going to do?" What? You say, there are things that always need to be done. People who want them to be done. Those are your customers. Figure out what needs to be done. You know, in California right now, and I'm sure it's probably the same here, but there are people who are making $80,000 a year walking dogs. You say, "Huh?" Yeah. I go jogging up the canyon next to my home. There are people that have 9, 10, 15 dogs on leashes. Did I say it was an easy job? No. But they get paid sometimes $50 a dog per month to walk a damn dog. And they get a bunch of them, and they get a route going, and they walk dogs. Generally it's an hour and a half. They put them together, they walk them up the trail, they walk them down. Yes. Do you have to pick up the shit? Yes. But for $80,000, I'd pick up a little shit. And so that's an example. He didn't go to somebody and say, "Please give it." But after he gets more dogs than he can handle, or she, They say, I know a friend, and I'm going to give them a salary, and I'll take the difference between what I get, because they're my customers, and I'll have them walk the dogs. Now they don't have to pick up any shit anymore. Their employees pick up the shit. No one who gives you a job will pay you more than what you're worth. Everybody who gives you a job is making more than what they're paying you. Otherwise, they wouldn't hire you. So what you want to do is you want to turn the tables, you want to start your business, you want to grow it until you can't handle it anymore, and then you hire your first employee. That's how you build an empire. And every one of you sitting here today can do that. And I guess from the time you start your company, it'll take you a year, maybe 2, before you hire your first employee. But at the same time, you'll be supporting yourself, you'll be paying rent, you'll maybe even be able to buy a boat, if you'd like that. But it's fun, because what you're doing is you're in control of your life. All you have to do is have a skill. I can tell you right now, walking dogs isn't much of a skill, but getting the deal. You see somebody with a dog that's out walking and say, I'd like to walk your dog for you. Or, let's go to another place. eBay. eBay teaches you marketing skills that like no other place. It's a marketplace. And so, here's an idea. You go to somebody and say, how would you like me to clean your garage? You have stuff in your garage that I will sell on eBay. I will put it up, I'll take care of it, I'll photograph it, you keep it here. As soon as I sell it, I'll come and get it, I'll pack it, ship it, take care of it, and we'll split the money. You can get those deals standing on your head. I don't know if you've ever seen the American Pickers, where these guys go in. Then you go out and you become a picker. You find some old farm and you say, you've got a whole barn full of crap. I'll turn it into money for you. Photograph it, put it on eBay, and you say, photograph it. Every iPhone. That's the wonderful thing now. Any smartphone, and you'll be able to afford a secondary iPhone, get into the business, make it happen. So, what I want to do really is make sure that you guys know that your life is just ahead of you, and it can be a great life. And the skills you're getting here today, learn how to put up a website, learn how to type, because unfortunately that's the core digital skill that you need.
Well, talk about typing in the future that's going to be valuable from our conversation yesterday.
Yeah. A lot of people say that voice recognition is going to replace typing. It's not. Not at least for 20 years. And particularly if you get into the technical side. Any language, English, French, German, what have you, has a lot of syntax and punctuation and things that just don't do well under voice recognition. Programming is horrible under voice recognition. I believe that a lot of things, like the convention center. How many of you have been down to one of the conferences at the convention? there's always a sign-in process. And there's somebody there who takes your data, types it in, gives you a badge. Those jobs are everywhere. And the only skill you need is typing. It's too noisy for voice recognition in that kind of environment. Plus, voice recognition does not spell right when it comes to proper nouns, names, places, companies. So typing is a core skill. Computation is a core skill. If you can do spreadsheets, you can start to think about businesses in a business way. You can start to think about the economics of the business. Because anytime you do a process, there are costs, there's sales price, there are overhead, and pretty soon you'll start to feel business. I have 8 kids, and when we go to a restaurant, I tell them, hey, how much is this restaurant making today? I said, a lot. And I said, no, let's put a number on it. And they'd say, well, I don't know. I said, well, how much is this hamburger? How much are we paying here? Look on the menu. I said, well, you know, $5, $8. I said, okay, let's say that and look around, how many people are eating hamburgers, Cokes, what have you? They'd say, well, pretty much everybody's about the same. I said, okay, let's say that it's $8 a person. How many people are in here? And they count them, and they say, okay. And I said, now, how long do you think it's going to take them to eat this? And they'd go through the math. And I said, well, okay, now, you're paying $5 for this hamburger. How much do the materials cost? I don't know. Well, most restaurants run on about, if it's a fast food restaurant, runs on about a 33% food cost. So if you're paying $1, or the costs of the materials is about 33 cents. That's just kind of an average. Now let's count the employees. How many people can you see in the kitchen? Do you think there's somebody, how many people behind the scenes that you can't see? And how much are they making an hour? Then I go through and say, okay, how big is this place? How much per square foot are they paying in rent? A really good location, like Fremont Street or something like that, it's probably somewhere between $5 and $10 a square foot. If you go out to a little crappy mall, strip center, it's probably $1 a square foot. So you start putting the numbers together. And my kids, I did this with them enough that after a while, I'd sit down and they'd say, this place is making about $50 an hour, or $80 an hour, or $100 an hour. So don't ask me, Dad. But as a result of my 8 kids, I have 7 entrepreneurs and 1 yoga teacher. She married really well. And because once you get a good feeling about business and how to do it, you're there. And so I'm not going to be here to coach you guys when you're sitting in a McDonald's. But start thinking about the world as a business. And pretty soon you're going to find a niche for yourself. And the better, and what you really want, the best thing you do, is find a business that you would do, that you want to do the activity even without pay. Because what you really want to do is have it be impossible to tell the difference between your work and your play. And I am really, really lucky in that I honestly don't know whether I'm working or playing. Like right now, I'm standing right here. Am I working or am I playing? I think I'm playing because I've got a kick out of it. Yesterday, I went through a prison, and it was like a high school field trip. And I thought to myself, wow, this is a lot different than I thought it was. It was really there was educational programs, there were some various interesting things going on. But I can honestly say that when I went through those 7 locked doors to get in, I got a little pucker. I think, wow, I sure hope they let me out. And it was a little bit, many, many years ago, when the Berlin Wall was up, I had a chance to go through Checkpoint Charlie to East Berlin. And I felt the same way. They let me go over there, but when that door closes behind you and you're on the other side of the wall, you say, whoa, I hope they let me out. Freedom is wonderful, and it turns out that it's sustainable. All you really have to do is have the grit and a life that you really, really like, and figure that out. I am now 72 years old. I will never retire. Why? Because I don't have a clue about what I would do if I were to say I'm going to retire. I don't know what I'd do. That would be different than what I'm doing. And that's really lucky. And I believe that when you guys get to be 72, you can look back and say, I've done some stupid things, and I've done some smart things. Thank God the smart things won. I shouldn't tell you this, but I was really, really a bad teenager. The fact that my parents didn't put me in jail was really a surprise. If they had good judgment, I would have been there. I at one time totally shut down the major highway on Halloween night.
Oh my God.
And myself and a few of my buddies went down to the local tire recapping place, got these old tires. Each one of us took a couple of them, waited for a lull in the traffic, and we put the tires clear across the freeway. The last guy had a can of gasoline, came along, we hit it with a match and took off. None of us got caught. But that clearly was a bad thing to do. But we thought it was really funny. And when you think about some of the stupid things you do that could really put you in the slammer for a long time, or at least get you some bad comeuppance from the local police, because we didn't think about the fact that we shut down commerce in that particular part for about an hour until the tires burned out. But pranks. I've got a few others.
What about the UFO movie?
I'm an alien. No. When I was a teenager, I bought an old, great big motor, and it didn't work, and so I took it apart. But the windings of it were literally a mile of copper wire in pairs that were insulated from each other. I thought to myself, gee, if I flew a kite with this, I could put a light on the kite, and it could be pretty bright. So I built a kite, put a big light bulb on it, hooked it up to the wire, went out. Now, flying a kite with a wire is really stupid, because if it goes down over a high tension wire, you know, all that power is going to come back and zap your butt. But anyway, I went out, I was in sort of a farming community, and there was a pump house on my uncle's alfalfa field in the middle, and so there was a good long amount of distance without any power lines around, and yet I had electricity. So every night, a wind had come out of the canyons. This was in Utah, where I grew up. And so I got the kite up, I hooked it up to the power. The light was on, and it looked really cool. It was up there bouncing around in the kite. And it was there 10 minutes. Got a little bored with it. So I tied it off, and I decided I was going to up the situation a little bit. And I had a partner in crime. His name was Danny. And I said, why don't you go down to the theater? There was a line of the theater at the time. And I'll go call the local radio station. And so we reported a UFO. And all the people in the line at the movie theater looked up and said, oh, wow, look, there's a UFO. And then the thing, just about that time, we heard sirens. And I thought, oh my God, this has gone too far. And so I disconnected it really fast, pulled in the kite, collapsed it, went home. We're now in the book of unexplained UFO sightings. What other stuff?
Anybody have any questions, or maybe BrainRush? Maybe you can talk for a second on how BrainRush and why we do it and why it's so important.
I have some kids who loved and hated school. They loved and hated it. And I started doing some research on education in general. And it turns out that what I'm doing right now, i.e. you're sitting, I'm talking, blah, 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 is actually the worst way to teach. The best way is to be active. And so we determined that there were 5 principles that match the brain's way of learning. The first one is you need to be timed. The reason for that is it puts you in the learning moment. What that means is you don't have time to think about the girlfriend that you're going to meet after school. You don't have time to think about what you're going to eat for lunch. You're in the moment. You're in the learning moment. Second, active. As you know, BrainRush requires you to respond every 3 to 5 seconds. When you put somebody in an fMRI and look at their brain activity, you show them a lecture, like what I'm doing, read a book, even a video, very little lights up. The minute you ask someone to respond, all of a sudden it's pushed in and you're saying, I got to think about this because I've got to make a response to this. So the second rule is active. The third, spaced repetition. Turns out that one instance doesn't do anything. When you read through a book one time, it almost doesn't matter. What you're doing if you're taking notes on this, is you're turning one concept into two, one that I've said and one that you've written. Spaced repetition creates pathways in your brains, and the more repetitions over time, the better you can remember it. It's just creating pathways, pathways, pathways. So repetition is an important characteristic. Fourth principle, play to mastery. When you know you're not going to be able to complete this lesson until you know it 100%, it's like it flips a bit in your brain and says, no, gentlemen, see, I can't skate by this, I got to know it all. And that's an attitudinal thing that's really valuable. The fifth, adaptive. Now, adaptive is absolutely critical. And there's some things that we found. In this world of political correctness, we say, that person's a little slow. That means stupid as a rock. Okay? Now, I'd be willing to bet $100 that several of you have grown up in your life thinking you're a little slow. Well, it turns out that a lot of people are slow, but computationally and intellectually very capable. Some people, it takes 5 repetitions instead of 4. Does that really matter? No. And so what happens sometimes is because some kids are a little bit slower, their clocks just run at different speeds than others. They get targeted with the idea in their own head that they're a little stupid, when in fact they're not stupid at all. They're just slow. They have a slower clock speed. And it doesn't matter. It does not matter. And the worst thing that can happen is if you start characterizing yourself as not being able to compute or to read well or to do with any of these things. That's the worst thing, because it starts to take hope away. When in fact everybody can learn, with exception. I mean, there are some people who are mentally disabled. That's nobody in this room. Everybody can succeed, and suppose that it takes you 7 years to make $1 million instead of 5. That's okay. That's okay. So don't worry about time. Time is the school of the future that I think we should have is no grades and no grades. That is, everyone should move at their own pace through their education. They should have total mastery of whatever they're doing. They should be reminded of it, because spaced repetition is about learning over time. So, for example, if you learn something today, you will forget about half of it in a week. But just before you forget it, if you review it, the impression will be even stronger, and now you'll probably not forget it for a month. But just before you forget it in a month, if you review it again, you'll have it for a year, and maybe for the rest of your life. I believe that the software, if we do it right, if everybody just sat down and the computer would keep track of about what time you're going to forget something, that you will be able to remember 100% of everything you learned in high school and college for the rest of your life. 100%. I don't know this is true. Maybe you have to forget stuff to make room in your brain. Otherwise, it starts dribbling out your ear. I don't know. Maybe there's just a certain amount. But promise is that stuff that you learn, you can keep with proper review. Everybody can. And so that's kind of where BrainRush is. I'm developing some fun games, and one of the projects we want to work on one of these days, you know, everybody thinks it's easy for me to be an entrepreneur because I've done a lot. Every startup I do is crap. And yes, at sometimes in the early stages of my startups, I know that it's work because it's hard. But I also know that if I keep at it, it's going to do pretty well. And, you know, Larson is proving an awful lot of stuff. I don't know if Ed has told you about the success ratio that this program has. Yeah. And so this stuff is working better than anything else. You should toast Ed with water or coffee, I guess. No champagne yet. because this program is working, and I hope that BrainRush is a part of it. Part of the reason it's successful. I know that the tech is sound. The brain science is sound. We know that we have the kernel of education in the future. Let me tell you a little bit about the future that you're going to be going into. We are on the threshold of having self-driving cars. Self-driving cars change everything. The reason for that is that, okay, what's more important, self-driving cars or world
peace?
Well, it turns out that self-driving car, that automobile accidents take significantly more lives than any of the wars that we fought during the same time. So if you can eliminate automobile accidents, you actually kill fewer people than world peace does. So, just strictly on the numbers, self-driving cars is more important than world peace. But I don't want to get too philosophical. But think about what it does to jobs. 95% of automobile accidents are fender benders. When you limit, and that's because of inaccurate driving, distracted driving, texting while driving, what have you. By eliminating that, all of a sudden, the auto body business goes away. Insurance costs for cars drop precipitously. That means there's fewer claim adjusters. Those jobs go away. Cab driver, gone. Truck driver, gone. You say, wow, that's a lot of unemployment. But no, not so. Oh, also, because auto-drive cars can go nose to tail, it increases the capacity of every lane of traffic by between 10 and 20 times, which says that we have way too many streets. We have way too many freeways. So all the construction of new freeways and new streets, gone. No traffic jams, gone. And instead of a traffic jam, you can drive, the auto-drive cars can drive safely at 90 to 100 miles an hour on a freeway. Some people say 120. I mean, if you go on the Autobahn in Germany, you, I've been there myself. I've been going 100 miles an hour, and a Porsche goes by me like I'm standing still.
Nolan, is that because of connectivity?
Pardon?
Is that because of connectivity? That they're on like a system that they're all talking to each other? Is that
They will be talking to each other, but they actually don't need to.
Okay.
There will be about a 10 to 15 year transition period where the auto drive cars are on the same freeway, same roads as anybody else. The nose to tail will only happen in what is now the carpool lanes to begin with, and then slowly the regular cars will be squeezed out, and there'll be more and more, auto drive things, because when you're there in traffic on the regular car and you've got an auto drive car going by you at 100 miles an hour, pretty soon you say, I want to be one of those guys. And so that happened. Now, I just said the doom and gloom. What's the great part? The great part is now we can garden our streets. And you say, what's that? Well, when you have auto drive cars, you can limit the size, the height. And so any street, you can essentially, let's say that we limit the size, the height of a car to 2 meters, 7 feet. You can drop a tunnel, a lane of traffic, a meter below the street level, maybe 2, then garden over it. And so all the traffic can now be underground, and every place that there's asphalt now can be a green park. Think about how much nicer a city will be with only parks and no streets, with all the transportation underground. That is going to require, by the time it gets going, about the creation of 10 million jobs, maybe as much as 20 million, to get all that done over a period of 10 years. So all the jobs that are lost because of the auto drive car will be replaced by construction of this tunnel system. You say, but driving a car in the tunnels, that's going to be pretty boring. Not so. What will happen is the cars will start to look like a living room. You can sit around, coffee table, whatever. You can watch movies, or all the windows can become flat screen televisions, flat screens. So now I can choose to drive down the streets of Las Vegas in the year 2000, in the year 1900, in the year 2055. Or I can drive down in the middle of one of the biggest casino heists in the world. Now, what's that? Those are jobs of travel games, travel experiences. Somebody's going to need to build those. You all need to learn Unity. If you learn Unity, you'll be able to create apps in about 3 months if you work hard, because it's a high-level language, and literally you can build games and experiences and apps. And the world, like every time there's a convention down there, there's now an app that goes along with it. And it's not just the ones at the convention center. The hotels here, they always have these little things, and they all, even if there's 200 or 300 attendees, they want an app. Somebody needs to build that for them. So that's just kind of a part of what the future's going to look like. Oh, have you heard of the Hyperloop? The Hyperloop is a train system that's in an evacuated tube. You pump all the air out. Why? Because now you can have a capsule that can travel faster than the speed of sound on the surface. You want to go Las Vegas to Los Angeles in 10 minutes? turns out that if you go through the math, you accelerate at 1G halfway and decelerate at 1G the other half, and you're here in 10 minutes. Want to go to Chicago in a half hour? Yeah. Want to go to Seattle in a half hour, 20 minutes? All of a sudden that's possible because of the fact that you can exceed the speed of sound. Like, I believe that high-speed trains should not be built right now. I think that they're a waste of time because the fastest train right now is the maglev between Pudong and the airport in Shanghai, or not in Shanghai, and that runs at about 250 to 300 miles an hour. Well, going from here to or Los Angeles to Las Vegas, your car will now be able to do it at 120 miles an hour. Now, one of the benefits of your car is you don't have to go through security, and the trains and the airplanes, you have at least an hour wait problem on the front end, and so the wait, while they're waiting at an airport, you can almost be there by your car. So it has to go a lot faster than 200 miles an hour to be cost effective. And so the Hyperloop is going to be the modern equivalent to the interstate highway system. That's going to take 15 million jobs for 20 years to get that put into the whole United States. But that brings us together. I want to be able to go from New York to San Francisco in an hour and 15 minutes. And the only way you can do that is exceeding the speed of sound. You say, boy, isn't that going to take an awful lot of energy? No. Because it's an evacuated cylinder, and it's maglev technology, which is frictionless. Oops. The minions are calling. Because whenever you accelerate something, it takes energy. But when you decelerate something, that kinetic energy can be turned back into electricity. And so the only cost is what the losses are. Maglev technology, virtually no losses. Wind friction, no losses. So all of a sudden, the cost of accelerating that payload is virtually zero. And so once the capital cost is in place, you will have a transportation system that will become very, very cheap. That's a world I want to live in. And that's a world that you guys will help build, I think.
Thank you, Nolan. So we have a tradition here, and so we have this book that everybody has to learn to memorize from, then we recite it as a hangout on air on Fridays. So everybody has signed this book for you.
Oh, that's very
and so we're going to give you this and get a picture taken with you, and everybody starts at the simple stuff that they learned as kids, and then they work their way up to the more interesting things.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood, peered down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then I took the other, which is just as fair, and because it was grassy and wanted wear, with steps, or with leaves, no steps, and trodden black. Yes, I kept the first for another day, and yet knowing how way leads on to way, doubted I should e'er come back. I'll be telling you this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that's made all the difference.
There we go.
You know, though, that is really, you got to really bring that into your soul. Because every day we have two roads that diverge. And sometimes it makes all the difference.
Thank you, Nolan.
Thanks.